it's not about what the story is. It's about how we're telling yourselves that story. And it's that constriction, that tight chest breathing, the racing mind, the panicked body is what, that's how, right? So how is more important than what, and the mechanics is pretty, it's very similar to the mechanics of working out, right? If you want to get strong legs, you're going to have to squat and deadlift, or some component of that. Like you're going to do those two movements or modified in some way, shape, or form, but they're two foundational strength movements that build strength in the legs, right? So it's how is squat and deadlift. Over here, it's how, constricted breath, and anxious.
Hello and welcome to the Building Men podcast. Become the strongest version of yourself mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. I am your host, Dennis Meralda, joined as always by my younger brother and best friend, Anthony Meralda. What's up, my man?
And I am your co-host, Anthony Meralda. I want to do the intro.
Oh, you want to do the intro?
I'd like to every once in a while.
All right, so let's do this. You're on. I'm going to count you down.
Welcome to the Building Men podcast, where we help men become the strongest version of themselves.
Nailed it.
My name is Anthony Meralda, and woo!
And I am your co-host.
And I am the co-host.
So, well done. That was
You like that?
Smooth like butter.
No, I'm gonna go to this for you now.
All right. So, before we get to our guest today, we did a full day in studio yesterday. We had a couple guests on already today, and yesterday we got into the whole pumpkin discussion. We got into that whole flavor discussion. I just wanted to quickly talk about nutrition really quickly because we'll bring it up to our guest today as well. But nutrition is something where you really have helped me over the last year plus of my life with nutrition, and it's been since I don't know. I had a rough September, half of October with my nutritional habits, and getting back on track now with what I need to be putting into my body. I was eating a lot of things. It was on the go, convenient, quick.
Yeah.
I was traveling a lot during the course of the month, a lot of tournaments with the kids, and I feel like I slipped a lot. Plus, a lot of late nights. There were a lot of parties that happened during the month, so I just feel like a bag of shit right now is pretty much what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I'm getting back on track, and it was, make that conscious effort to get back on track. And I'll talk about how the Enlifted program is something that has helped me understand that on a deeper level. So before I get into that, with nutrition, we talk a lot about, singular ingredient foods.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday I said I felt, I was real sluggish. You're like, go home and eat a steak, have some sweet potatoes and some spinach. Just make it simple. And that's what I did. It was so good.
Yeah.
It was like going back home again.
Right. Well, when you can look at the back of a food or a product that you buy, and all it says is what the actual thing is, you're not going to find anything else in a sweet potato except it's a sweet potato, right? So if you start to cook more like that versus having packaged foods and versus, having pre-made stuff, you don't know what the hell's in it, you feel way better. Yep. Even if a bulk of your meals comes from that. Just single ingredient foods, and especially to get back on track, because think of how easy it is to get off. It takes 3 days of not eating well like you were before, and your whole body feels like crap.
And sleeping. I noticed my sleep schedule was off too.
Energy.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then my workouts suffer because of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like I'm constantly in this chasing my tail aspect of what I was doing. So I said yesterday, I'm going to start with this meal right now to get back on track. And last night I slept really well. Got up this morning ready to take on the world. And I know it's not the be-all, end-all, but just the nutrition, the things that you're putting into your body are so important. Right. How much of fitness do you think, or how much when you're trying to change your health in a specific way? I mean, a lot of people I need to get to the gym and work out 5 days a week and bust my ass and sweat my ass off. How much is it? How much does nutrition play a role in people changing the way that they look and feel?
I feel like it's most all of it. I mean, you can't outwork a poor diet. You can't work out what you ate the day before. And you hit a certain point where you can't do it. Maybe in your 20s you could do it, but then all of a sudden you just can't because you had cookies the night before. It doesn't mean you could up your workout the next day. It just doesn't work that way. It's way more than you realize that it is, and you're eating throughout the whole day. And so that can dictate the rest of the day and how, again, that's going to affect your sleep. That's going to affect your energy. That's going to affect how the workout itself goes. So like your workout will be better off if you're eating properly. I would say that you could, if you just focus on nutrition, you could walk 5 days a week and you'd be better off than someone who's busting their ass in the gym 5 days a week for an hour and a half doing intense strength training. I think you just going for a walk and then eating properly, you'd be way better off than most of those people. Stress levels would be down. You'd feel like $1,000,000 because that's what you're putting into your body, and your body is giving something out after that. It's like expenditure from what you're putting in.
I'll use that as a segue into our guest today, who is part of the Enlifted Coaches Program. She is the community manager, the events coordinator, and someone who is definitely holding me accountable for the language that I am using. Wanted to welcome to the show Kim Kesting. Welcome to the Building Men Podcast, Kim.
Hi, guys. It was really hard for me to keep my mouth shut while you were talking about nutrition because that's my jam.
Well, that's why I wanted to use it as a setup, without a doubt. It's so interesting. We one of the things that we talk about when we're in the Enlifted program is just the language that we're using. And I started going down that path, and I had to kind of check myself with what I was saying. Like I could, maybe, kind of, words that we need to get rid of, right? But one of the homework assignments that we've had over the first 2 weeks of the program is to take a 45-minute walk without any other distractions, no technology, no phone, no watch, no nothing. Just go and think about the work that we've done. And the first time that I did it, it was really difficult. I kept like looking in my pocket for where's my phone or checking my watch, like how long have I walked? Finally, I'm like, just fucking walk. Just go take a walk and like turn everything else off. It was really liberating experience for me to do that. That's why I was using that walk thing as a segue into what we're talking about.
That. Yeah.
So Kim, I've seen you for the last 2 weeks in Enlifted, and I actually jump on when you're on with Chase Tollison. You do an Instagram live once a week. You're playing language games and this and that. And I know myself, I think Anthony does too. I definitely have like some kind of a weird man crush on Chase Tollison.
Oh, we all do.
Yeah, he's just there's just something about his voice too. I was like, I could just listen to him.
He sends me a voice message, and I reach out to him.
You're being seduced.
I was like, what's up, Chase? And he's like, hey, Anthony, sorry about that. I just got out of jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, fuck, that's so badass. And I was literally just like sitting in my pajamas in bed, and he's out there like ripping dudes' faces off in the gym.
You got to tell Chase when you see him the next time that Anthony listened to that voice note at least 30 times in bed.
We can leave it.
There you go.
That'll be perfect.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You got to jump on tonight. You got to.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Yeah.
So
For real, join us.
So we'll use that as an opportunity to just go back to like more of an origin story. How did you find the Enlifted program? Because you are like a main part of what they're doing. You take a lot of the language piece, and then how does it work with the fitness and nutrition piece? And that's really your niche within it, besides being the community manager. So how did you first become enamored with or find Enlifted program?
Yeah, so I am a health coach, and working with and teaching and leading other health coaches has always been my goal. So I first met Mark England back in, I want to say 2019, 2018, possibly. I met him through Mike Bledsoe in the Strong Coach community. And then fast forward a few years, I had really been impacted by a lot of the work Mark done, and taught to me, like, just soft talk was a huge thing that I had to work to remove from my language. And then goal setting was really powerful. I started to see all of my business goals, my personal goals, checking off the list. I'm like, damn, this guy's onto something. And fast forward to 2020, I enrolled in the level 1 certification to improve my own health coaching. And it right-sized my whole life. I was in an interesting spot where I was really struggling in my business. I had been working as an entrepreneur for about 2 to 3 years, and my personal life was completely getting in the way of my success as as a coach because I was in the total victim mentality and really just screwing myself up with my stories. And so it was making it difficult to show up for my clients, like as a clear vessel and teacher. So I knew after having these previous experiences with Mark and being friends with him and seeing him operate, I was like, okay, he can help me here. And level 1 certification turned me into a new human. I go on to level 2. I'm loving it, enjoying it. And because I have this relationship with Mark and he knows that I have this background in marketing and sales and really growing and evolving coaching businesses, he connects me with his business partner, Adam. And then Adam and I start talking, and Adam's like, yeah, you're the person we need to bring on board. And do you want this job? I was like, I wasn't really looking for this job. I'm doing my other things over here. And long story short, I joined our team about a year ago. And then we have been having a blast ever since. Building this certification out has become one of my, this community and these people that I get to connect with. This is my favorite job I've ever had. You know, I don't even think about it as a job. This is me sharing my skill sets with coaches. This is me educating people on the power of language, and I get to do it alongside 2 awesome men, Adam Chin and Mark England. And what a blessing! You know, we have such a good time, and we are really excited to take this thing out to get the hands into more coaches and educators and leaders because it is powerful.
Definitely saw the impact and the power in it. I mentioned on the after the first week, even, you know, just going through the exercise where you take a should statement and you just change a couple words with that statement and how powerful that it can be. And in my work with teachers, I actually did a professional development session. There were like 200 teachers there, and I just walked them through it. And by the end of it, there were so many teachers who were like, that will help me as an educator help my kids get out of the victim mindset just by going through that really, really short exercise. It takes 10 minutes to go through it, and it's just thinking about the way we talk to ourselves. And I'm like, if you are so cognizant of the way that you're talking to yourselves, and imagine if you're hearing your students using victim mindset, I can't do this, I should have done that, just taking 5 minutes, 10 minutes, how they could just reset their thought patterns in their brain to think about their own worth or their own capabilities in a different way. It's transformational. So I sent a voice note to Mark, and I was like, dude, like this needs to be in every single, anyone who's working with kids needs to understand this on a really deep level. So I just think it's like just at the tip of the iceberg with what this program has the ability to do. I'm so, I'm really grateful to be a part of it. And the other cool thing, Kim, is you're part of my group as well. So you're in there with the group, like helping and facilitate and going through the process. And I appreciate the way that you talk about your own shit from your past. So we had to kind of create this person who gives us this negative self-talk, and you had your person, and the things that she told
Kimmy,
you.
That's her name.
Her name is Kimmy?
Yeah, Kimmy with an I, Kimmi. But then it got expanded out to be called, she was called That Bitch Kimmy. So, it's like Instagram handle and everything.
Does she really? And she has a following?
Yeah, there's a handful of Enlifted coaches that follow her, but I only posted one post. It was funny. It was like we thought we might take that angle in marketing, and it would just be this internet troll who would troll me. So like I would own both accounts, but That Bitch Kimmy would troll me on my own account and would be like, "Oh, you think you're so good at cooking? Like that plate looks garbage," and it's like a beautiful meal. Just to illustrate, how we troll ourselves.
Picking out all the negatives in every single thing.
Yeah,
that's so
exactly.
Even just the Kimmi, it is so annoying, right? Name. It's really annoying name.
Thank you. Exactly. Like when I was growing up, like well, it was interesting with my name because I never wanted to be called Kimberly, and now like I always introduce myself as Kimberly, and that was part of. I mean, your name is an important thing, right? But I really hated when people called me Kimmy. So when I was a kid, it was like, people called me Kimmy. I was like, absolutely not. And then when I thought, about our Billies, right, we're naming this inner critic. And I'm like, well, what would her name be? I was like, well, it's Kimmy, but it can't just be Kimmy. Like, that's not annoying enough. It needs to be Kimmi.
So besides like totally cutting you down with the food that you're cooking, what are the other things that Kimmy's saying to you? What's the other negative things that Kimmy says?
Oh, she doesn't talk that much anymore, but the when I first got into Enlifted Level 1, there was a lot happening in there. So I was doubting myself in my ability to build my business. I was doubting myself in how I was spending my money and how I was using my finances, and how I was like squandering money on $9 lattes and like, whatever it was. I had this like total victim story about how I was never going to earn enough money because I couldn't take ownership in my business, and that I really didn't know what I was talking about when it came to the people I was coaching. It was just like had this smoke and mirrors thing, because I myself had gone through this health transformation, and I lost 90 pounds. I got, really fit and healthy, and people I was like, I did it for myself, but I can't really do it for them, which lies. I was doing it for them too. And then when it came to my personal life, I had all sorts of wild things in my head about how men viewed me, and how I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't pretty enough, or that I was never going to find a person who would respect me, and like anything and everything under the sun. Like there's this victim voice that we have. It runs all day long. And when you catch it, you're like, what the heck? And you might be able to like for a second shut it up, but until you learn the language patterns and why those stories are showing the way they are, it's like, well, damn, like I didn't know I was trapped in my own head like this. And then you become aware of it. You learn the tools, you learn the breath, and you learn the rate of speech, and you learn how the stories are built. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, Kimmy, that's cute. Get out of here.
Right. You talked about you had a journey in health and wellness and physical fitness, and that was your springboard. Talk to us a little bit about that time in your life. So you mentioned you said you had lost 90 pounds. Bring us back to that person first. Like, what was her life like at that point?
Yeah, so I was living in New York City, and I was about 22. Right after college, I moved to New York, and that's when I really started gaining some weight. And I got caught up in the corporate life, 9 to 5, work hard, play hard, lots of alcohol, lots of delicious foods, lots of takeout, and a lot of numbing, because leaving college, you step into this like adult life, and you're just not really sure what, you're just like there to have a good time still, but you've got to take things a little more seriously. And now all of a sudden these bills are coming, and there's this, journey of, I want to enjoy myself, but I also am living in New York City, the most expensive city in the world, with like little to no money, and I still want to have a good time. So the journey I was on was really like seeking pleasure, and I didn't know how to find it. Like I had relationships and friendships that weren't super fulfilling to me, and I didn't have much meaning or purpose in my career. So it was like, okay, go to work every day, and then come home and go to drinks, go have dinner, go have ice cream, go have pizza, like whatever it was. And I found myself, prior to this, I had always been an athlete. Like, so I knew how to eat well and move well, and I just threw that all out the window. And next thing I knew, I woke up and I was in my mid 20s, like 25, 26. And I was like, oh my God, like what happened to my body? So I went back to the ways of, like I was like, okay, I need to get back into the gym, and I can transform this. Like I can change this. I know how this works. I've done this before. I know how to lose weight. I know how to eat well. And I also I didn't know it at the time, but what I now know and understand about story and belief was that like I always held the belief that I could lose that weight, and I knew that I could do it. Like I saw myself at the result, which is, how I look now, and I saw myself achieving that goal. So I worked my butt off for 4 or 5 years, and lots of group fitness, lots of CrossFit, lots of weightlifting, lots of really eating well, and a bunch of other things in that journey, and trial and error, trial and success, but always a consistent downward trend, because again, what I now understand is like I held that belief that I could get there. So even the little ups and downs that were in my diet and my routine, and how committed I was to the gym at any given time, didn't matter as much, because it was like, I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. And towards the back half of that journey, people watched me lose a significant amount of weight. They're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm like, I'm eating well and I'm moving, right? Like I'm working out. And so I noticed how different like my relationship was with that weight loss journey than most of the women around me specifically, but even some of the men. And I thought to myself, like, wow, I'm really not interested in this career that I'm in. I see how much pain all these other people are in because they can't get themselves healthy. And I am obsessed with health at this point. Like I know everything in and out about what's worked for me or what hasn't worked for me. And I'm a fiend for more information. And that's when the idea came into my head that, I'm not happy in my job. And I've learned that what I was doing, my unhealthy habits and behaviors was all geared towards numbing that unhappiness. And once I shifted out of that numbing stage and I could be like, okay, well, what do I want to create? It was, okay, I'll be a health coach. And that was a challenge in itself, but I switched gears and decided to go, quit the job at the drop of a hat. And I just was like, I'm all in on health coaching. I'm going to go build a business. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be in control of my own life. I want to inspire people and educate them. And then it was, here we are. So that journey in itself was really, really, I make it, when I tell it in a three minute span, it's like, oh, it was easy. It was freaking hard. It was really tough. I had to give up and sacrifice things along the way to achieve that goal. But again, like with that vision of the result in mind and like how much it meant to me, it was like, I'm going to do this and I can do this and whatever I have to do to get there.
Do you find that during that time, you mentioned the relationships you had weren't, significantly fulfilling in your life? Maybe they were more shallow, surface level relationships. Do you feel like as you were going through that journey, two-part question. One, did people that you were hanging around with stick with you and be a support system during that journey? And then did you find yourself losing some of the friends because they're like, who the hell is she trying to do this or that? So did you notice like a shift in those relationships that you had when you were going through that transformational journey?
For sure. I mean, a combination of both, right? So like I realized a lot of my relationships, I at the time I was like, oh, I don't get that much from these people. Like I enjoy them, but I'm not like, I don't have this soul connection with them. And a few people I did, a few really close friends that really did stick with me through the journey and saw me go from stage to stage to stage. And those people are still like in my life and I love them. And some people that just couldn't hang with it. It's, nothing pisses off somebody else who's in their victim mentality more than somebody who's winning. So so there was, I can think of one friend in particular. She couldn't stand it. She couldn't stand it to see me succeed. And we were coworkers. So not only was she watching me succeed physically, we were also in a very similar career path. And despite the fact that I didn't like my job, I was good at it. So she's watching me succeed in work. She's watching me succeed in my personal life. And she just like, it got to a point where I realized I was like, well, I don't want anything from this relationship. So I'm just going to end it, and not end it in a way of like, I'll never speak with you again. But I stopped spending time around her because again, it was like, she wanted to go have drinks after work versus I was like, I want to go work out. And there just wasn't an alignment there. So I noticed a lot of that shifting. And then, I started because I was doing group fitness classes and I was eventually doing CrossFit, like I started making friends at the gym and they all wanted to do the same things I wanted to do. So it was like, oh, perfect. Like, let's go work out together. And that's how we spend our quality time. And then after, if we're going to go have a drink, it's going to be a juice. It's not 6 beers. So I just found people that were more aligned with me. And then once I got into coaching and I got into communities where I was seeking mentors and people that were a little bit further down the line for me, I found a tribe of people that really just supported my growth and supported me as a human that pushed me into the path of let's all go further, rather than just me on my own.
So interesting in this space. It doesn't feel to me like a competitive space. It feels like everyone is in it to help everyone else get better. There's enough for someone to be successful and another person. It's like an abundant mindset from what I've recognized so far. Quickly shifting to the Enlifted program. you mentioned how you got started with it, and what you were looking for after going through strong coaches with Bledsoe, and how that you were introduced to Mark. I'm wondering, people that you see now on this end of it, so you're more on the the leadership end of Enlifted. Do you see people coming into the program that are kind of at the beginning stages of searching for something new, or they've already found this idea, this light, and now they're continuing on this journey?
So I would say, as an individual, every person who does this type of work is on a path to improve themselves, because what it requires of you is to show up, own your shit, and work on it. So every person individually is very much in that place for themselves. As far as in their phase of their coaching, it's varied. So we have people that are expert coaches that have been doing, I mean, you guys are going to interview Mike Salemi right after this. Like, Mike Salemi was one of in the earlier rounds of being Enlifted certified, and that guy is a world-class coach. He's at the top end of the coaching career, as you can get up there. We have other people just like him at that phase that have taken this certification and gotten so much value out of it. And then we have people that are, this is their second coaching certification behind their personal trainer cert or their precision nutrition, or they've done maybe a life coaching certification, and they're like very new into coaching. So what makes our community so impressive is that breadth, right? Because we have people that are getting started, and we have people that are really in it, and we can all collectively make each other a little bit better and stronger. Because when you're a new coach, the best thing you could possibly do is surround yourself with the pros. And when you're a pro coach, the best thing you can do is make yourself a leader within that and start to build those relationships to remind yourself what it's like to be a beginner, and to remind yourself, like, okay, I have to keep sharpening this axe, because I'm always going to come up against something that's going to require that beginner's mindset of me, and approach it with like curiosity and more questions than I know exactly what I'm doing. So across that community is just such an awesome way to see and learn from each other, and to connect and to collaborate. And I enjoy it so much. I love the people that I've met through it, and I love the people that I have access to, and I love that, who I get to lead as well. So it's a perfect balance.
Absolutely. And I just think of the last meeting we were talking about. I forget exactly what the topic was, but I said something to you about I need to ... and you corrected me, and you said, or do you get to? And I was like, all right, touche. You're right. I like just using that language. And as I'm thinking about it more, I'm like, oh, I'm getting good at this. But then you're like, no, I'm a novice at this. I need to really understand it and think about it on a deeper level. The other thing is having that Rolodex of people, the people that we have met through the Building Men podcast. It's really amazing. And everyone's journey is just slightly different, but it all brought them to the same spot, which we just believe, the total alignment to that spot. I'm also wondering, and maybe there's not any raw data on this, but maybe it's how the genders approach it in a different way. Like, have you noticed the difference between men and women in the Enlifted program? Like the maybe how they show up, how their preparation, their level of vulnerability, anything. Have you noticed any difference with the different genders in the program?
Oh, this is an excellent question. So men that have gone through the Enlifted coaching program are my favorite men to be around. And here's why. They are solid and firm in their masculine energy. And it comes through their words. So they say what they mean, they communicate with ease, and they will like show up at the times they say they're going to show up, right? They're in. So what this language system does is it allows, I see a lot in men specifically where I'm like, okay, the way you started this to the way you came through, just by changing, soft talk and solid talk, we could talk about just simply that. And from a woman's perspective who deals with men all the time who aren't in that firm, strong masculine, because they use a bunch of soft talk, or they've got conflict language, or they're not sure how to communicate. It's like, I don't want to don't talk to me like that, right? Whereas men that come through the Enlifted certs are like, they're solid, they're firm, they're certain. And I'm like, yeah, that's so refreshing and so attractive. And when it comes to the ladies, what I've noticed is the women are able to step more into their power in the feminine. So they can breathe and relax and settle, yet they're confident in this flow state because they create more certainty with their words. They create more empowerment through their words and their belief within themselves. So overall, between the two, it's just like the different starting points and the different perspective. And obviously this is all through the lens of a woman. So like seeing men speak more solidly and be more in the masculine is just like, yes, right? And like to watch other women come and step into their power and start to own their business, own their coaching, own, and be more firm and solid and more confident in themselves to go out and be a go-getter. It's awesome for me to see that. And when the balance comes together, right, and we get that perfect balance of masculine and feminine, I really enjoy that the men show up with such vulnerability in these calls, because it makes the women feel a little more safe too, because we're talking about some deep, dark things, or we're talking about things that could be uncomfortable. And so it's a beautifully balanced space in my perspective. And I think Mark also really sets the tone for that, because he's a solid, firm masculine with a very soft, he creates a very soft, safe space for people to express. And then he laughs at you, right? He gets you to laugh at you when you realize, oh, wow, that's my victim voice. Oh, wow, okay, that was really painful at one point in my life, and I can let that story go. You'll find out, Dennis, when you get through those one-on-one calls, your mind's gonna be blown. You're gonna see the range that Mark has and the ability that he has to work with everyone wherever they are and just set them free of that trauma and those wounds, because it is transformative.
I witnessed, he did an Instagram live. It was like a Tuesday night thing, and he worked a woman through a process, and just watching her, the way that she carried her stress and her trauma to, the end of the, 15, 20 minutes. And I saw the power in just that short period of time. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, there's so many things that we did a podcast yesterday, and as I talked about it, I was, calling it like a suitcase of pain. That you put the stuff in there and you push it down, put it in the back of the closet, and one day you'll get to it. And recently,
lock it up.
Lock it up, and you don't remember the code was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What movie? Spaceballs. Spaceballs. It's a key for the code for the luggage. So, but once I was able to, I've dealt with a lot of trauma over the last month and a half of my life, from my upbringing, and this will come out in the program, my upbringing, and then my previous marriage, all this like stuff that I was holding on to. And once I was able to do that, it's hard, but then it also creates space for other things that you're, one, to deal with, and then two, to be like, okay, I'm free of that now. It's a game changer. I also, you mentioned soft talk and solid talk, and I want to make sure that the people that are listening on the Building Men podcast truly understand the difference between the two. So can you give us the Cliff's Notes version of the difference between the both?
Absolutely. So soft talk is utilizing keywords that soften up what you're saying. So it's going to allow some space for like ambiguity, or potentially going to lead to confusion, or it's just kind of, it's not solid, right? So we use words like kind of, maybe, I guess, probably, sometimes it could be like, it's kind of, we soften up with like, we could say one day, we could say I might, and these are all, I'll use the example of like, you're trying to make plans with a friend, and you say, are you available on Tuesday at 6 p.m.? And they say, I'll probably be able to get there. I think that should work. Does that mean they're coming, or does that mean that they're not sure if they're coming?
Yeah,
they're not sure.
They're not sure.
They're not sure, and they might really mean I'll be there, right? But because the soft talk in their words is like, I think that should work. I'll probably be able to get there. So I think in that sentence is soft. Probably is soft. So if we just pluck those out, and now the sentence becomes, that works, I'll be there, versus I think that works. I'll probably be there. Like, that person's showing up. You know, that person's going to meet you at the time that they said. And so you can then say, like, oh, perfect, cool, see you there. And these words come out often. Even one of the big things for me in the soft talk was the really like first intro to language work for me that made me go like, wow, mind blown, is I kept saying when I was in the early phases of starting my coaching business, I'm trying to build a coaching business and I kind of want to fill it in, right? I kind of want to work with women who are on a weight loss journey. I kind of want to improve people's relationship with food. And it was subconscious. I didn't realize I was saying it. And once I became aware that those two phrases, trying to and kind of, were ruling my subconscious, all of a sudden it became obvious to me, oh, well, I'm trying to build a business or I'm building a business. Okay, I'm building one. Now I'm much more solid. So I knew what I was doing versus that soft, ambiguous thing, right? I kind of want to coach women on a weight loss journey, or I coach women on a weight loss journey. Two totally different feelings for me. And I love being able to be solid in how I speak to people. And I really love when people are solid when they speak to me, because it creates that certainty. And Mark said something about this the other day. It's like, if you can just give yourself a little bit more certainty, like most people don't have that. And so you just become magnetic, right? If you're certain about something, there's like, create more certainty for yourself, create more certainty for other people, and they're going to love it, because most people are not certain at all. And so solid talk does that. So solid talk is, we just take out those soft talk keywords, and literally you can just take them out. And the easiest way to practice it is like, start reading back your text messages and emails before you send them, because you'll start to see, you know, you're responding to your boss and you're like, I guess we could try this approach. It's like, well, take out the I guess. We could try this approach. And guess what? Your boss is going to do what you suggested. Versus if you say, I guess we could try, he might be like, I don't know if we should do that. You know, it's the more firm you are, the more it allows somebody else to say yes or no. But it gives a solid approach.
And it communicates certainty and confidence. And my big thing was I would use the word think a ton, and I'm still catching myself using it. I think I should do that, or I think I'd like to blah blah blah. And yeah. I kept recognizing myself using that word, and I would put it in there just so I didn't have to commit to whatever the thing was that I was thinking about. Yeah. And I still think. I mean, I don't want to, like, I do think about things. I was saying it to Julie. I'm like, I need to stop saying it. She's like, well, you do think, don't you? I do, but I'm not using it saying, I am thinking about this deep philosophical topic right now. I would use it as a buffer to whatever I was trying to avoid or trying not to make a decision around.
Exactly. And like the difference between like thinking and contemplating, right? So like when Mark gives you the instruction to go on that 45-minute solo walk, and he says, contemplate the work. He doesn't say think about it. You know, he says contemplate it, because when you think about it, it ultimately, I get the mental imagery of, if I'm thinking about it, that my mind's just racing. It doesn't lead me to a place of reaching a conclusion. It doesn't lead me to a place of action or a result. It just keeps me in the hamster wheel of my brain. And when I hear the word contemplate, what I hear is like, okay, I'm going to be objective and I'm going to be neutral and I can contemplate it. And it becomes more about curiosity versus think. And so the example with that, right, is like, it's just important to understand that your words and what you say creates mental imagery in the mind. And that mental imagery that you get as you say something creates a feeling in the body. So if you're an overthinker and you're constantly saying, I think, fill it in, right? The imagery that's happening in your mind is like that hamster wheel chasing, and the feeling is anxiety bubbling up, because it's like, oh, I'm just thinking about it. I'm not doing anything about it. I'm just thinking about it. And that I relate to that a lot, because that was my experience too. It was like, I was stuck in my head. I couldn't get things out of the head out into the world, because I was still thinking about them. And I was like, oh, well, what happens if you stop thinking, you start doing?
It's almost that idea of like, if I don't commit to it, then I can't fail, right? So if I just say that, like, I think, then I didn't ever actually put myself into that vulnerable position to fail and lose and be embarrassed. So it like allows for that leeway to still back out, this like coward approach, that I know I do subconsciously all the time, just even in my own head, not even like saying it out loud, but in my head, I'm like, oh, well, I think about all this and I never really commit to it so that I don't have to put that on myself later on.
Totally. And see, now think about this. You guys host a podcast called Building Men, right? As a woman, if a man is constantly engaging with you like that, how do you think women respond to that?
Yeah.
They look to men for that certainty and for that, and not that they should get all of their certainty from men, but like women want to interact with men in a way like masculine, feminine balance. It's like, if you can be solid as a man, and especially in your language, when you're interacting with women, they're going to respond totally differently. And it's all subconscious stuff, right? We're talking about subconscious thoughts here and behaviors and interactions. It's like, not like women are automatically, oh, wow, look at him and all of his solid talk. It's more just like, oh, he wants to take me out and this is when he's going to meet me. Hell yeah.
Right. It offers you a level of, one, like this steadfast idea that the person that you're communicating with has their shit together in a way that they believe in the words that they're speaking. There's not that I'm going to take a step forward and then maybe a step back or not commit in a specific way. There's a lot there. I mean, when I think about what work or what the potential is of the Enlifted program, we just talked to Clint and he was talking about working with athletes and the language that we're using with ourselves. And so we did a whole dive into, man, I wish I had this when I was playing high school baseball. I had a lot of the negative self-talk. You could go in the direction of a dating coach. Like I think about Paul Roseberry, who's a guy that we interviewed who is a dating coach, because a lot of men are afraid to go and talk to women because she looks a certain way, or I'm not good enough, but when you're believing that about yourself, you're putting that energy out there into the world and everyone's going to believe that about you.
Exactly.
So I think you just, again, there's so much potential here in every different direction.
You can apply it to almost anything in life. Like just fill in the blank of what you want to apply it to. That's what I was thinking about, like the stories that we tell ourselves. And I'm thinking about like with public speaking for me, it's always something that I've struggled with my whole life. And then when we were talking to Clint about the certain instance that I had in my head that like triggered this whole, downward spiral. And I was thinking about, because when we were talking about sports, we were talking about your pitching thing. And I'm putting myself into my situation when I first did that public speaking and it went poorly. And then talking about rewriting it and then reading it and then breathing through it and then, writing it again and what it would be like if it went really well. And, I'm looking at that and I'm like, because I just live by that. I live by that moment that is the capital T truth, and that's why I'm not a good public speaker, because that one moment that happened when I was 16 years old, and that now means that I'm bad at public speaking because of that. Right. And I neglect all the other instances where I might have spoken and it wasn't like that.
Yeah. And did you guys talk about the reticular activating system and like our search and edit mission of looking for the times we failed versus the times we succeeded? And like we could get, I love that because it's exactly those specific moments that shape our identities. And the truth is like our identity is not a fact or a fixed thing. It's a fluid, evolving version of who we are. We can change our identity at any time. We can become something different if we choose to take that on and take the steps towards it. The way to surefire be successful at that is to look back at the places where we found evidence that is against it. So if you have that one experience where you bombed your speech, like that's the thing that's stuck in the mind and in the body as the evidence of your ability to be a public speaker. And if we isolate that story and we release it from us and we can get more clarity on, okay, that was one time. Cool, that's what happened. I come to terms with it and then sigh of relief, right? And then we look back and we say, oh, I host a podcast. Of course I'm good at public speaking. I've recorded X amount of episodes and I never choked. Or if I did, I could laugh at it because it was like, it made the show better, right? We can start to look on that lens of, well, here's where I've succeeded. And the truth is that if you have one thing that's keeping you puckered and keeping you constricted and like tight around public speaking, Well, until we release that from the body and until we release that from our bank of failed stories, then it doesn't matter how many times we point to the success. We've got to clear the constriction first. And that's exactly what we're learning to do in the Enlifted certifications. We're teaching coaches to go into the places where their clients are stuck. And if it's, for me, working with women in weight loss, a lot of it was about, I made the joke in the beginning when Dennis was like, oh, tell us about your childhood traumas. I was like, one time when I was 13, my dad called me fat. Like, that literally happened, right? And so, like, there was part of my trauma in it. And he didn't, he did it in a moment of, like, him being in a stress response. And it upset me and it hurt me and it stuck with me. And I will remember that scene for my whole life, right? And until I became aware of the fact that that one story and belief, like, was playing into me and my identity and, like, eating and adding weight to my body, that made me feel like, oh, well, it's just because I'm destined to be fat. It's like, well, no, you're not at all. Like, you're not, and until I let that out and until I moved forward and created a different story, it's like, that's what was running the show. And we just get the opportunity to go into those stories with our clients, get them to a place where they can acknowledge that those things have happened to them, get them to slow it down, get them to breathe into it, get more clarity and accuracy with our words. So rather than it being this emotional, like, totally wound up experience, it's like, well, these are the facts. This is what happened. And we create space from it by adding in breath, and we can breathe through it. We can slow down. And then we become, the story comes from, like, right in front of our face right here to all the way zoomed out far away. And now it's just an experience that happened one time versus, like, the governing thing of our whole lives.
It's
and when this is my last point, is that when you release that as a coach, is that now your clients can move on, right? So you get the opportunity to guide them through that, and now they can move on. So the thing that was keeping them stuck is no longer keeping them stuck, and that's the whole journey of it.
It's so cool that you mentioned that whole thing, and Anthony, thank you for sharing that, your historical journey through. One of the coolest things about building Men, Kimberly, is that, like, it is totally a journey for the both of us that have gone through our shit over the past couple of years of our lives, and it's all been chronicled in this really transparent, vulnerable way for people that listen. So people go back and listen to the first couple episodes. One, hopefully you'll stick around because it's cringeworthy, listening to how we started off what we were doing, and then just us, going through the journey of figuring out what we, what this was, what we're doing, how we're going about doing it. And I can still remember, first, when I had you on as like a guest on the podcast, you had to get banged up to come on. You're in my house. We were in just different rooms doing a Zoom meeting, and you had to drink probably like 12 ounces of tequila.
I was like, do you have any alcohol with you? And we were just it was just my brother and I, like, it was just us talking. That was it. I went upstairs into his daughter's room on a different computer, and he was downstairs, and we were talking just about me. It was an interview about me, and I was so worried. I had 3 glasses of tequila, Casamigos, and then I'm up there and have a coffee mug filled with it too. And there you go. Yeah, so that's good company. But that was the only way I could do it. And we were just talking about me with just my brother and I was so nervous about it. And and you were very vulnerable, talking about anxiety, depression, and how it manifested itself in the way that you showed up. But what happened was, like, and when you think about it, finding, like, mentioning the reticular activating system, finding little things that could confirm that wasn't you anymore. Right. And what you've done over the last 6 months or so, and now I'm sitting here kind of marveling in it, because I look back to you in college when you had to have a special plan and you couldn't take a public speaking class. You had to go to a class that was, like, for immigrants. I was just like, it was like English as a second language public speaking course. And I didn't even participate. I was just like an observer of the class, and they gave me credit for it. I was like,
I remember you doing the voices of the people that were in your class. Is there any chance you could pull one of them out right now?
The first part of the class was always they would put up a word that nobody knew what it was in English, and that was the first, like, 10 minutes of the class. So the guy raises his hand, and then he's like, York. No, he said, he said York, York. And the lady was like, oh, like New York? Like, is that what you're talking about? He's like, no, York. And he kept saying it, and finally he meant jerk. And he was just putting like a soft J on it. I was like,
You are such a York off.
Yeah, you York off. You're a York. So it was great. It didn't help much, but if anything, it probably made it worse.
But I'd look back to that, and you would come home, and the funny thing is that you would go through this experience, and you couldn't do it in that setting, but then you'd come back and tell the family about it, and you were legit like a stand-up comedian on stage. We would be rolling, and we'd be like, why can't you just do this when you're out with other people? But it was because of the story that you were telling.
The story
yourself.
I told myself in that classroom setting, too. Yeah, sorry.
Exactly. I was going to say, here's how. I can tell you how, just from the information that I've gathered. When you were in front of people, your breath is trapped in your chest. You have no ability to slow down the train of thought that's happening up here because you're just playing back subconsciously that one time you gave a speech that didn't work out, right? The breathing is all up here. You're constricted throughout the abdomen, likely, right? And it's like, oh, I'm panicked. And so when you're in that stress response, and the reason I know that, just based off of the little bit that I've heard, is because that's the natural inclination of how humans' physiology responds, right? And so we can see it. Dennis, you're going to start to notice, like, if you haven't already, as you watch people do their Billy reads in the group calls, you will pay attention to their body language, right? Listen to what they say, but more importantly, pay attention to the body language, right? The shoulders are going to be up here. The breath's going to be tight. They might like round. They might be sweating. Like there's this experience that happens where the body tells everything that you need to know. And that's why this is such a powerful coaching certification, is because coaches have people like that in front of them all the time. Like they're working on something hard. They're working on something that stresses them out. They're working on some of their deep, dark things. And if you are a coach who's completely unaware of the breathing mechanics and of body language, you're only getting half the story, right? Maybe getting less than half the story if you're unaware of the language and the patterns of words and the victim mentality. So we unlock all of that. And when you do enough reps of it, right, and you work with enough people on their story, it's not about what the story is. It's about how we're telling yourselves that story. And it's that constriction, that tight chest breathing, the racing mind, the panicked body that's how, right? So how is more important than what, and the mechanics is pretty, it's very similar to the mechanics of working out, right? If you want to get strong legs, you're going to have to squat and deadlift, or some component of that. Like you're going to do those two movements or modified in some way, shape, or form, but they're two foundational strength movements that build strength in the legs, right? So it's how is squat and deadlift. Over here, it's how, constricted breath, and anxious, right? So we can figure that out and we can start to play with it so that we get to the place of, well, how can I unlock this? Okay, get your breath low and slow. Face the emotion that comes up when it comes up. Clock where it is in the body. Understand what that feeling and sensation running through you is, and then breathe. Just relax, right? And it's a fun exercise to do. Dennis, now I'm going to give you homework. Once you learn the one-on-one coaching techniques, you have to do it to Anthony for that public speaking.
Absolutely.
Scenario.
And so as you were talking about that, I think another cool exercise would be to take it to another level. Have half the people that are in the Zoom turn off their the sound. So as someone's reading it, they can't hear anything. They just have to focus on the body language, just the nonverbals, and then come back and say what story did they hear without any words. Because I was always when I interviewed Mark, I talked to him so deeply about I believe so deeply in the nonverbal communication and the paraverbal communication, the way we say what we say, the tone, the volume, and the cadence, and how much communication that carries outside of the actual words. So I was so interested in the Enlifted because I want to understand the power of the words and then knowing the power of the tone, volume, and cadence, and then the body language, how it all works together. But being able to either the person mutes themselves and reads their story and no one could hear, they just have to visually see what they're doing, and then what story does that tell? And then I'll bring it back to Anthony because going on that journey and waiting to see him on stage in front of a large group of people and just being like, I fucking got this. I'm going to own this area right here. And I know it's coming. I know it's going to happen. So being able to see that journey for me, and that that roller coaster ride for both of us to go on. It's a really rewarding thing.
And I feel like that's some of the things that, like you were talking about it before, it's so important as coaches to do this and tackle your vulnerabilities and your struggles that you're going through personally, because if you're coaching someone at something, you're probably coaching them at something that you're an expert at, right? And trying to put yourself in their situation is sometimes hard. So if you're, because the underlying emotion usually is similar to theirs, but you need to be tackling your own shit at the same time that your clients that you're working with and coaching through are also going through this. And that's how you relate to them. Like, oh, I'm teaching someone how to work out, and I've been working out my whole life, so that's easy for me, but I'm also working on my public speaking, and I feel the same that you do when you go into the gym, that nervousness, that tenseness that I do if I'm standing in front of 15 people. So I can put myself in their shoes and be able to be like, I get it. I understand what you're going through in that.
Exactly. And like that's bringing it back to the conversation we were having about the level of coaching experience within the Enlifted community is those pros. That's exactly what I was iterating, right? It's like those pros that have been in the game forever and that are really, really, really good coaches get the opportunity to connect with people that are newer into the coaching game. And it reminds them, it puts them back into the place when they started. And I know I've had that experience a million times over, where it's like, it gives me a reflection of my own journey often. It's like when I talk with newer nutrition coaches that have been in the game for a year or less, and I hear their problems or I hear their victim story coming out in their business, it just puts me right back. I'm like, oh, wow. And I can giggle at it now because I've learned enough, and I've moved and I've put in my reps, and I've educated myself, and I have, gone different avenues to grow and develop and keep pushing myself forward. But I'm like, oh, it's very simple. I was like, but they don't get it yet because they haven't had all the experience, and they'll get it in time, or I can offer my wisdom and help move them forward. But there's an experience that happens there. And exactly what you're saying is like the feelings are the same. And that's what's important, because the feelings navigate so much of what we do. And if you understand what someone is feeling, right, that's why we ask in the Enlifted coaching system, we ask people after they've shared a vulnerable story, we say, what are you feeling right now? And they'll tell you. And then you ask, where are you feeling it? So it's where in my body does that feeling manifest? Maybe Anthony, in that public speaking, it's like your throat feels constricted. That would make sense. Or your chest is racing. And then what level is it? So tell me, from a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you feeling it? And the reason we are asking that is we want to get the person in tune with that feeling, because often we just override it, right? We're not aware of the body. We're not aware of the feelings that come up from it. And we're not as aware of the degree of that feeling. So when you're working with your coach, and the coach can ask that person the question, it's like, okay, I feel constriction in my throat. It's, I have this sense of like anxiety moving through my chest, and it's a 7. All right, cool. Let's go deeper into the story. Let's work on it a little bit more. And now we go through another series of exercises. We ask again, where are you feeling it? What level is it? What emotion is it? And then they're going to tell you, oh, it's still in my throat, but this time it's a 3. Okay, now I just got a measure of progress. Like we moved it a little bit. We moved the needle. We gave you a little more relief. And then we get to the end, and it's like, well, what feeling is it? And they're going to say, oh, well, I don't feel it anymore. I feel different. I feel lightness in my chest. I feel a smile coming across my face. I feel relief. And now we have a totally different experience. So checking in with those feelings, which I mean, prior to learning the Enlifted system, I had no idea to ask my clients that. I didn't say, hey, how are you feeling? Like I might have said, how are you feeling? And I just meant like, what's up?
Yeah. What's going on?
Yep. So what's going on? Right. I wasn't asking like, do you feel a tightness in your chest, or what emotion are you working through? And so that creates a lot more transparency on both sides, right? I'm asking for you just as much as I'm asking for me, so that I can navigate where you're at. And I'm asking so that you know what you feel. And we don't often give ourselves a chance to check in like that.
That's absolutely right. And wrapping it back to the beginning with nutrition, this is a question from Clint Lockoff, and that would be, what is your favorite meal to cook for a large group of 30 plus?
Well, my favorite meal to cook, period, is something that's like steak, potatoes. Actually, exactly what you were describing as the meal you just ate. I was
so
like,
good.
yes, Dennis.
Yeah.
I love good steaks. I love potatoes, and I love vegetables. And so that's like, if I have my choice of like, cooking steak for 30 people is like a tough job, but I do it.
That's beautiful.
And why do you take your steak? Medium rare? Like, what are you doing with it?
I really like medium rare is a good gauge for me. Like I just this past weekend I got the chance to cook up these amazing like 2-inch thick ribeyes that were all grass fed and like, oh my God, I put them in a cast iron, like seared them on each side, bunch of salt, olive oil, also in the broiler, then pull them out, more butter, let them rest. Like it was.
I'm starving right now. I'm so fucking hungry.
we might have to tell Salemi we can't.
I was gonna say, let's go get
I'm
some steaks.
so hungry right now.
I'll get some steaks. Yeah, seriously, it's like nothing beats a good like grass-fed piece of meat. Like if somebody told me, it's like, okay, you could die today, or you could be a vegan for another 20 years, I'd be like, take me.
I'm done.
See you later. I'm out.
It's been swell.
Let's see you on the other side.
So
I'd be like, they have steak in heaven.
Yeah, unlimited amount.
So tell us where we can find you, how we can reach out to you, connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram, Kimberly.Kesting, and also at Enlifted Coaches. So if you want to learn about me more personally and you want to see what I'm chefing up and the steaks I'm cooking and all sorts of delicious meals, go check out my own personal page. And then if you want to learn more about the power of words and language and story and breath, and you want to learn about the coaching certification, come find me at Enlifted Coaches, and you'll find me there. I'm the person who manages the account, but you'll get to see a lot of the different coaches that we train and work with and that are in our community. And we love to highlight what they're up to. We'll highlight your podcasts and the awesome connections that people are building through there and how we're all moving each other forward. So take a look at it. They're people you want to be around.
Yep.
It's like we enjoy each other a lot, and everybody's working on their shit. So you don't have to fix anybody there. You just get to go and hang out and have fun.
Absolutely. Brother, you got anything?
Thank you for being here. First of all, that was awesome. I think that was a great conversation, and it's amazing how we've had so many Enlifted coaches on now. Every single one brings something different to the table, has their different way of viewing the program itself and how it can benefit them. And that's what I love about these conversations, is it never goes down the same path. I always get a different little understanding of each thing and how it works. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And so
I can't wait for you to for Dennis to coach you.
I'm excited.
We're going to coach each other.
Yeah, totally. I love it.
Anthony's going through the training camp for the Souls Retreat, so we're going to do like a workup on each other. He's going to come back and work on my trauma. I'm going to work on him with his stories. We're going to figure it'll benefit us mutually if we can help each other.
You guys are about to go.
Going to be in the fetal position. Yeah, I don't even.
Next, definitely leveling up.
We'll drink Casamigos after. It'll be fine.
During, after, before. For Building Men, we got him. We actually have him here in studio just in case.
Oh yeah, we're good.
Perfect.
Yep.
Learned our lesson.
So we just recently got a new sponsor on Building Men. It's Become Stronger. The guy's name is Paige McNally. We'll put the information in the show notes. He does these handmade maces. And metalwork, and it's amazing. He actually, Jocko Willink uses his mace when he does workers. He was telling us yesterday.
Yeah, the
dude's
awesome. A badass.
Is a badass. So we're gonna
makes his own things in his. I think it's his, father-in-law's barn or something like that he makes it in. So cool.
In Medicine Lodge, Kansas, and he's just a great
dude.
Embroider,
can put quotes on the actual mace itself. He does everything. This guy is.
And we got to connect him with Jeffrey Oakes, who's the mace man.
Yeah, that's
capital.
Right. If he knows Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. And if he does, we got to connect them two together. So we'll look for that. We'll put Become Stronger in our show notes. Building.men on Instagram, buildingmencoach@gmail.com. Go on to that bitch Kimmy's Instagram and tell her to go after herself. Tell her to go fuck off. Right. Fuck you, Kimmy.
Stop being a bitch.
Let me see. I think she has 1 or 2 posts on there. I gotta find out. I signed out of it because I was like, I can't fuel her fire.
Right.
I can't play into this. Like I get it enough. It's oh no, she has 0 posts. She just has it says that bitch Kimmy out here trolling, and she has 15 followers.
Oh wow, my God. That's more than we had our first 6 months on Building Men.
Yeah.
So Building Men, go. Kimberly Kesting, thank you so much. This was a blast. We'll definitely come back and do it soon after we kind of graduate from our respective programs. We'll see where we are in that process. Building Men, go a step further than you thought you can go. We'll see you next time on Building Men.